Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so I told everybody the Laker game was on Thursday. No, the person I listened to, yeah, I think they misspoke or maybe I misheard, but I'm leaning toward them misspeaking because I'm certain that person said Thursday. Whatever the case, Tuesday. Tuesday will be the Laker game at Chase Center, 7 p.m. Pacific time. Should be a good game, but both of these teams are kind of in flux, so when I say in flux, you're looking at situations where the Golden State Warriors have paid Wiggins and Poole yesterday, of course. Congratulations to those guys. And, Draymond Green is now in a space where, of course, his contract says that he can opt in at $32 million next year, I believe it is. And he has already stated that there will be no extension talks. They don't have the money for the extension, I don't believe. But they did have Wiggins give back $20 million roughly. So I think that can go a long way in possibly keeping Draymond for this upcoming season when he decides to opt in, which is inevitably going to take place. So that's just a little bit of something that we're looking at. What prompted me to turn on the camera, which is not necessarily anything having to do specifically with the Lakers, which is why I'm not sure if this is a Laker talk or NBA talk. But nevertheless, we'll figure it out at the end. I think that there could be a good chance that phones are ringing off the hook right now in terms of trades and GMs trying to get something going before the season begins. I haven't read anything that would allude to that being the case. I have, at all. All I'm doing is speculating off sheer understanding of what the environment looks like right now. And the environment looks like you have a bunch of teams who wanted to make trades during the summertime but were unable to because of the price tag on things being so inflated with both the Rudy Gobert situation and the KD trade demand in place at the exact same time. Once Rudy was traded for a bunch of picks, you understood that everything else was going to be price tag way too high. And yes, the market could, in theory, ignore that. But the problem with the market trying to ignore that as a whole was free agency. Free agents were going to be signing at that price because of that trade too. That's why you saw Dame get $61 million, I believe. I believe it was because that trade took place and put his price tag high. The market was being reacted to, or rather the market was reacting to that trade, I believe. So, in situations like that, you just automatically had an environment where people wanted to wait to make trades, wait until price tags got back to normal, wait until somebody did something that would make it so that we find some balance. Somewhere down the road, after like maybe 4 weeks, 5 weeks of absolutely no NBA movement, we saw one single solitary signing, and that was the Rockets signing Willie Cauley-Stein. And at that exact moment, I said, okay, now the market's back open. And the reason why is because you just needed somebody to be brave enough to make a transaction in that market. And once that happened, you could reset some of those prices just by sheer nature. And that's what we saw. Then at that point, we knew the preseason was going to start up. You could start seeing players maybe show us what they are looking like this time around in terms of their conditioning. Maybe they're a little better. What if they incorporate it into their game? That would determine what would be a right way to price them. And of course, you understand that once you have a presence of a piece like KD, saying he wants to be traded, now you see an environment where certain teams that didn't have any disruptions have now disrupted their circumstances because those trade rumors were leaked. Guys that didn't necessarily need to be moved at all would possibly be moved for a chance at Kevin Durant in 4 years contract. You know what I'm saying? So a guy like Jaylen Brown who had no problems, now you're looking at him and saying, is he still happy? Do they want to sign him? These type of things are in place now just because of the sheer nature of what KD's choice was to make that trade demand. So all of that made for a wacky summer that made it so that a lot of teams weren't able to build the vision that they have in store for their team. But what they do have is the pieces necessary to make those trades to build that now. They can do it now, and that's exactly what I expect to happen. The thing is, why the significance of this week? Because it's right before the regular season starts, and some of the pieces that these teams want to move, they're gonna have to try to move them at the best possible price, because once the season starts, they're not going to be able to showcase those players at the same level that they were at last time. So it's best to try to trade them now while they're still at that old price. So that's the significance. That's what has it set up so that I believe this is probably one of the most busy times to be a GM in the NBA. I think this week is crazy because what I think is a lot of people are trying to make those deals moving, those type of pieces. And we've talked about this yesterday. I think a good example would probably be a guy like Jonathan Isaac. The Orlando Magic, in my mind, it's logical for them to be shopping him this week because they don't have the opportunity to showcase him at the same level that he once was. Because of all the players that they now have in place playing his position, he's never going to be the starting small forward. And if he does, he's only going to have half the minutes. And he's coming off of these knees. You know, when a guy's coming off a knee, they have to take a little time to get back into conditioning. The conditioning just in general could have setbacks because of the nature of what they're doing. So all of these things just line up just fine for you to say, okay, yeah, if you're the Orlando Magic, it's a great time to trade this dude. And it's the right time to trade him. It's not just a great time to trade him, it's the right time to trade him. So that's what I think is happening. I think not necessarily he's being traded. Maybe for all I know, Orlando wants that piece and isn't thinking like that. But I'm just saying, logically looking at everything on paper, yeah, that's exactly what time it is. It's time to move. And there's a lot of pieces like that around the NBA. I look at a guy like Julius Randle. There's no real, urgency to move him necessarily, but the contract could be looked at as something you want to move on from at any given moment. So, as I've said before, I think that you may see someone want to try to make that deal to get that contract. In the midst of trying to move a Jonathan Isaac or something like that, that is who they're going to want, in my mind, because of the contract that he has, coupled with the fact that he's a really good player, just happens to be on a bad contract. Young enough, you know what I'm saying? You can see him as a part of a vision for a team, and they wouldn't mind keeping him at that price necessarily, depending on what they're putting together. So, that's a thing. I look at a guy like John Collins. He has a lot of guys at his position that are less expensive. I think he's up for an extension as well or something like that. Maybe they've already given him that extension. Now they can see some of those pieces behind him and say, you know what? We can move on from John Collins and still have a very strong team, and then still be able to slip in even more talent on top of what we have, make up for the picks that we gave up for DeJounte. All of these different things that will help them balance out what it is that they're now dealing with without picks. So I look at the Atlanta Hawks and say they could definitely make a move or two, help themselves this week. Jakob Poeltl, we mention him every time it's time to talk about a trade because I just know for a fact they ain't going to pay him unless they do and shock the heck out of me and give him an extension this week. But I totally don't see that coming. Wembanyama is 100% what they have in their mind, and I don't think he fits with Wembanyama at all. So, as we've said a million times, it makes sense to trade him, and I think you want to trade him before the season starts as well. Just out of sheer nature, you want to expedite that tanking process more than anything, and you don't want to risk him getting hurt. That's really what it comes down to. He's a significant piece. So what you're going to do is send him out there. He's going to play up to whatever level because he's trying to fight for a contract. But it's not meaningful basketball. So how does his season project forward if you're him? Well, in my mind, it's like they're going to arrest me. If I twist my ankle, I'm out for a month. You know what I mean? As opposed to maybe the 3 weeks or whatever, 2 weeks, whatever it be. So that's why a player like him wants to get the heck out of there, in theory. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That's somebody I'm looking at and saying, okay, I'm excited about being on OKC. But how many more years do we have to suck, man? How many more years do we have to suck? I think a guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander could totally find himself in a different situation, play himself up to an all-star level player, play some meaningful basketball, and still get the dynamic that he would otherwise get on a young team. He doesn't have to sit here in the dumps with OKC while they run around the Williams guys all year long. I mean, to me, OKC could be a fun team for him to play on, but at the end of the day, he's making too much money for their timeline, if I'm being completely honest. His age makes sense, but his money don't, because when that contract ends, they're still not going to be at a championship level. They're going to have to pay that contract to him again, and then they're going to have to pay that contract to about 4 or 5 other guys to keep the team strong, and would be losing about 5 or 6 other guys that they probably don't need to be losing because of it. They just have too many lottery picks. Everybody's going to need to be paid. And they ain't gonna have the money. This is only the cap doesn't allow for them to pay all the talent they're actually gonna have. So it's gonna make a lot more sense for them to get rid of Shea's contract, so that they can kind of pay some of those guys at more affordable prices. Especially if they end up getting lucky and land with Banyama, they're definitely going to need that contract out of there, and they're going to need some other guys that they don't want to lose out of there too to make sure they can keep Web Banyama. So all this stuff looks real murky for the OKC Thunder, and it's just logical for them to see it and just shave Shea out of there. You don't need Shea on it. You don't need him. You like him, but it's too soon. Giddey's still on rookie contract, so you know you're not moving him. And all the rest of your pieces on rookie contracts, so there ain't no sense in moving them. Shea's the piece you move. Look at a guy like De'Aaron Fox. A little different because now they have a better timeline around De'Aaron Fox. Now that Sabonis is in place, that makes more sense. But even so, I got Davion Mitchell on contract, rookie contract, making minimal money, playing at a high level, almost a level that probably can reach up to where Fox is going to be at. Why do I need Fox at that price? Only thing I need Fox for in that regard is to make Sabonis' contract make sense. So that's one of those situations where you just move forward if you're Sacramento and you're cool. You're a playoff team, you're happy, you just got Murray, it's nothing to do. But yeah, if I'm looking to move a contract in Sacramento, that's the one. That's the one. And you just see that kind of stuff all over the place. We know Ayton isn't happy. We don't even need to ask if Ayton wants out of there. Ayton wants out of there, for sure. And I feel the same way about the guys in Brooklyn, even though nobody's going to say that. I'm going to leave it alone. I'm pretty certain both of them would welcome a trade. I think both of them would. Well, probably all three. Ben Simmons, I think he can handle, Brooklyn, but I think he could also benefit from not having to deal with New York media. That's what I think. That's my exact opinion there. So I think all three of them could welcome a trade and be very happy. So these are the type of things I'm looking at like, man, people don't see that coming necessarily. Maybe I don't either. But the environment for which something like that could happen is upon us. We are in that environment right now. And I think them phone calls are being had behind the scenes. More players like Mo Bamba. Even though he re-signed with the Orlando Magic, I still don't know why. Like, I'm going to be real. I don't know why. Because he's now playing behind Wendell Carter. And Wendell Carter is just as young as him. Wendell Carter's going to be an all-star if he stays healthy. And Mo Bamba's just going to be floating around the roster. They got Bo Bowl in place now. If he steps forward, it just makes even less sense to have Mo Bamba in place. So I think Orlando's probably going to shop him. And I think the Lakers need to make that call. That's what I think. For God's sakes, improve our center position. Of course, we need to move our centers. We've talked about that. I expect the Lakers to try to do that. I really do. I don't think Damian Jones is going to be here for very long. We already got rid of Huff, which kind of surprised me, but clearly they see the same thing I do. A need to make changes in the center position, period. So that's happening. So you see what I'm saying, y'all? The environment for which trades can be made is upon us. It's a lot of stuff that teams can do to get better. Some of them dudes that I mentioned, you can see opportunities for them to be traded for one another just right here and now. Just that guy can go there, that guy plays the same position as that guy. They can be swapped for each other. So it's like, I look at Vucevic in Chicago. That's another one. I'm like, yeah, we can move him, get some of that salary out of there, make the team make more sense, get a more fluid running player. Ayton should have been in Chicago from the beginning. I always said that. I know they just got Drummond, but I still think they should get Ayton in place of Vucevic. And stuff like that. You could just see room for such things to take place. I think the Bucks need to upgrade their bench a little more. I do like the young player that they picked up, the wiry guy. I can't think of his name, but he's really, really good. But they need some more bench depth as well if they're going to contend. So all of these things I expect to get done in the first half of the season, because a lot of this stuff was intended to get done in the summertime when nothing got done. And nothing has still been done. So guess what? It's going to be done. So that's why this week is important in my mind, man. Everybody just pay attention to the NBA because, of course, the season starts on Tuesday. So today, tomorrow, Tuesday, and, of course, throughout the first couple of weeks of this season, I expect movement. I do. I expect movement, or I expect conversations about movement. And if nothing gets done, it isn't because people aren't talking. I can tell you that much. So that's what I got to say, man. That's pretty much it. Video 44. Thank you all for watching. I'm out.